Lake Placid, New York, and the legendary Mount Van Hovenberg, the site of the 1932 and 1980 Olympic Games, and a gorgeous look at a very legendary track. Hi everybody, I'm Nick Gismondi alongside Bree Schaff. Glad to have you along for this one, the two-man bobsled run number 2. And not much has changed. Well, all season, it is still Steve Holcomb and the Americans exerting their absolute dominance. They come into this second heat as the 1, the 2, and the 3. But the first heat wasn't without a little bit of drama, Bree. Crashes are a part of this sport, and the Swiss, they got a rough one.
Oh, they sure did. And the whole time you're watching it crash, you're thinking, oh, please come back on the runners. It's a much more comfortable ride. And then Gregor got a teaser back on his runners, then over again out of 10.
But the Americans showed that they have some good speed on their home track. They did finish 1, 2, and 3. Holcomb's team was in the first spot, but it was this team of Butner and Berkeley who finished in the third. They were just 2,300ths back of their teammates. And then the second spot was Cunningham and Quinn. A good run for them. They were 1,600ths back of first.
This was one of the best runs I've seen out of Nick Cunningham. I talked to him between heats, and he was a little disappointed with his top portion, so definitely has a chance to have an even faster run on the second heat.
And Steve Holcomb, well, showing it's no surprise nor a fluke. Pushing today was Chris Vogt for him instead of Langton, who was with him yesterday, but it doesn't matter. Steve Holcomb out in front, and this one laid down a run at 55.09.
Yeah, I'm sure Holke wasn't too pleased with that run. He's such a perfectionist and has been doing this so long. He's going to look to improve upon that run.
So the Americans qualify in that first, second, and third spot. Interesting coming up as well as you get a look at the rank from the first heat there. Is the job of the Koreans. Both of those teams managed to slide in just at the very end. They finished towards the bottom, and the other thing to be moderately impressed by is that the Japanese team, piloted by Hiroshi Suzuki, also manages to squeak into the second heat.
Yeah, it's always great to see those smaller nations that that struggle in a winter sport like this. At least hacking away and gaining speed and gaining time.
So you get a look at the finish area there. That will become very popular very shortly, and it is a cold day in Lake Placid. Temperatures are in the negatives right now. There is a 30% chance of snow starting at around 3 p.m. Eastern. Supposed to dump about 8 inches on Lake Placid overnight.
No.
We'll see what that means for tomorrow's competition as you take a look at the start list for run number 2. We mentioned the Koreans, Won and Kim. They will be in the 3rd and 4th spots. Suzuki from Japan just squeaked in, and then the Americans will round it out in the 18th, 19th, and 20th spot. Who can beat Holcomb and Vogt in this race?
Signs point to, if I was going to take my 8-ball and spin it around a little bit, I'm pretty sure every side of the dice, I would say no one.
Nice. Nice. And that is exactly the mentality that most of these guys have coming into this. It is almost a bit of a battle just to make it on to the podium, more so into that potentially 3rd and silver position, but it has been just such a dominance by Steve Holcomb so far this year. All right, our first pair coming up in the second heat of the two-man run here in Placid will be the Japanese team of Hiroshi Suzuki and Shintaro Sato.
Hiroshi has been driving a long time, so he's definitely a crowd favorite that everyone on the bobsled tour likes to see do well.
Competing since 1992, 4-time Winter Olympian. His best finish was back in 1994 in Lillehammer. He finished 18th. All right, here comes their push. We'll see where they come in at. Their first run push was 5:47. That was one of the slower ones. They are on a new sled built by a tech company in Japan. Their push here, well, the same as their first run of 5:47.
Very similar to the Bodium project, how that was for the Americans. If you can have a home custom design sled where they only have your welfare in mind, that's huge for these countries. A decent run. Hiroshi is known as being an excellent driver, but like we talked about, when you're in a smaller nation, constantly overcoming equipment or a start deficit, that can be tough. to hear those sounds. The bobsled track, it looks so smooth on camera, but you know, no matter how hard the track crew works, it's still just it's a rough ride.
Japanese team had a 56.32 in their first run, and they will put up a total of 152.67 here. They slow down a touch of 56.35 here in their second run, and we are underway for the second heat. Suzuki and Sato, obviously currently first. They're the first ones down the track.
We won't be able to tell until we've got a few sleds down here if there's any tendencies on the ice. A lot of times it can slow down a little bit if there hasn't been a fresh spritz. But today is in fact so cold that they couldn't do a normal race prep for the ice, because if they were to spritz it, it would have made just instant beads of ice on the track and made it even rougher.
Back up at the start, this is John James Jackson from Great Britain. His brakeman will be Craig Pickering.
See John struggling yesterday, limping. He did. Oh, that's what we've seen that before. Late entry into one, skid out of the grooves. That's really near impossible to come back from on a run. In Lake Placid, you need your velocity. You're pushing the sled, you're doing all that work, and you kill it if you take that kind of a tap and cross and wipe onto turn one.
John James Jackson, we saw him limping early on. He is a Royal Marine Commando, or a former corporal with the Royal Marine Commandos, the 36-year-old 6-footer, battling an injury with his Achilles. So this is just a lot of pain, and you see that on his face and that anguish when he gets out. They're ahead right now by 500ths at the split break.
He did tear it in July, so it's pretty incredible that he's here competing, but you know, you're competing in so much pain that you're constantly wondering, is that worth it? I spoke to his girlfriend Paula, who lives with him yesterday, and she said she was definitely done taking care of him.
All right, well, Jackson takes care of this one, is in second right now. He does not best Suzuki and Sato. All right, getting a look at that Great Britain team there after their run puts them in second. Suzuki and Sato had a good first run, so they're in good shape right now with that 152.67. Just 1/100th back, though, and a little slide here.
If you watch that slow motion replay, you can see the brakeman still getting in and getting settled past those grooves, and that is, you have to be so delicate, especially on ice this brittle. Any movement by anyone before, and you come out of those grooves, is going to send the sled sideways.
Back up at the start, the Koreans, their first of two pairings. This is Won Yoon Jung and Xiao Young Woo. Okay, and they are off here in this one. Koreans have struggled on this track just a little bit.
5.30, 5.30.
They are still a relatively young program, but getting so much support when they were awarded the Olympics. A great start time. That's something, like I was saying, when your nation gets an Olympics, suddenly the resources increase. You know, everyone cares. These guys actually have their own brand new push track, which I heard is incredible, which would explain these faster pushes.
Yeah, that push track, one of the state-of-the-art push tracks in all the world, rivals even the one that the Canadians have in Calgary at the Winsport facility. Woon Yoon Jung and Xiao Young Woo, the Korean team you see there, just coming across the finish line here in Lake Placid as we are just underway in the second heat of the two-man bob. The Americans still to come. That is just a short time away, as well as some very talented Canadian teams. I see Lumsden here and pushing. You'll see him shortly also. But the Koreans did a nice job to make their way into this second heat, barely squeaking in. But as Bree, you've been talking about, now that they've been awarded an Olympics, the funding and the energy behind the sport have been increased. This is their second team now up at the start.
It does so much for a program. If they're awarded an Olympics in their home country, it just all of a sudden the resources and the care, and they've got a push track now that is state of the art. I would imagine, you know, sponsored by all of their sponsors, maybe Samsung, high-tech push track with Bluetooth technology.
Absolutely, GPS built into the helmets. Kim Dong-yoon and Jun Young Lin, they crashed yesterday. Did a nice job getting down and through the track, made a couple of hard turns in that Heat 1. Their sled built by Eurotech, and real quickly here as they get out here to a good push. We'll see where that comes in at. Their first run push was a 5:27, a little slower. That's a 5:31 here. That push track you were talking about is absolutely state of the art. It is one of the best in the world, even rivaling the one in Calgary at the Windsport facility.
And what's interesting is that actually it's an outdoor facility right next to the ski jumps where the opening ceremonies for the Olympics are going to be. And it's definitely a part of the showcase. You know, it's a lot of showmanship in the Olympics, and those home countries want to show, you know, just like Russia coming up with Sochi. It's a presentation to the world of, hey, we're pretty cool.
This is what we're doing, and we're here to stay. Suzuki and Sato are your leaders from Japan right now. Kim and Jun are 2900ths back of that, going about 75.2 miles an hour. That's right around the middle of the speed. And they will come across that line and move themselves into the second spot. So the Koreans right now are 1 and 2. Suzuki and Sato fall to third.
Here you can see these guys coming out of the exit of 14, a beautiful camera shot. You can see there how hard it is to be delicate enough with that pressure, to carry some left pressure coming out, to not fall out and slam that right wall.
We saw some hard turning early on from them, especially in that first run. The turn they crashed in turn 2. Made a very big, distinct steer adjustment to make sure he came out of that. It wasn't the most graceful thing I've ever seen, but he came out of the turn and he got back on the horse.
We call that buying insurance in bobsled.
Yes.
You are not going to make the same mistake twice, especially when it hurts that bad.
Edwin van Kalker and Sabrin Jansma, they are next up for the Dutch. Known for their speed skating, but Edwin van Kalker, the 34-year-old, has been competing since 2001. Let's see what kind of a ride they have here. Their first run was a 56 flat, and that was good for 16th. Their push here, a 5:23, the fastest we've seen today.
All right, here we see him coming through the Devil's Highway. One of the trickier parts of the track. What's so unique about Lake Placid is those turns are back-to-back with very little transition between. And as a driver, and of course as a brakeman, you just feel like you're slamming on and off walls, even on the best run. 3,500s ahead right now, chasing down Woon and Xiao for Korea. The Koreans are 1-2. Japanese are sitting in the third spot. Jackson and Pickering from Great Britain are in fourth. Now it is the Dutch, who are 3,200ths ahead. And they will come across the line into the lead by 3,500ths. So the team of Edwin van Kalker and Sabrin Jansma take the lead here early on. Back in Lake Placid, sled number 5 of heat number 2 for the 2-man has been completed. Those are the Dutch. 34-year-old Edwin van Kalker, who's been competing since 2001, and his brakeman, Sabrin Jansma. They are your new leaders with a 151.80. As we go back up now to the top of the track for their compatriots, as we see the second Dutch team, Ivo de Bruin and Broer van der Ziege. It's always fascinating to see the evolution of a team dynamic when you have a newer pilot like Ivo and coming out and beating such a veteran pilot as his teammate.
That was a big move from heat number 1. Their push in that first run was good for 13th. That was a 5:28. Do they get a little bit quicker here? They do, not by much, but 5.24 is their push, so a nice jump, and they will be out in front of their countrymen right now by 500ths. We'll see if they maintain. That second split, normally a little bit of a determining factor. They'll lose some time by about 100th back.
And a lot of these races are more than just for FIBT points. You've actually got a race within a race, as these countries have individual qualifying processes for the Olympics. The Dutch, I believe, have to have 2 top 8 finishes in order to qualify for the games.
You are correct on that. We talked about that in heat number 1. Dutch trying to get something going here. 75.5 miles an hour right now, and they are even with their teammates Van Kalker and Jansma.
That was a lovely chicane. Ivo will be happy about that. Your last few turns always feel so much better when you pull that off.
And now Ivo did pull it off, and he will move out in front. So the Dutch are 1 and 2 right now. It is Ivo de Bruin and Broer van der Ziege who have now overtaken the lead with a 151.75, Bree.
You know, sometimes, even if you don't do well, it's enough just to beat your teammate, especially when you guys are competing. You know, it's always a friendly competition, but even if you drop spots, well, I got my teammate.
Here's another look at that run. A little bit of a bump
tap
there, yeah.
Yeah, so when you see that as a sled is going onto a turn, what you can't see is the result, and it pushes the nose down on the sled and sends the sled in late, and then you get a lot of pressure on the end of the turn, which is the flop.
Brakeman did a good job right there. Van der Ziege to stay down and low. You don't want to see his head as we now head back up to the start. For the Russians, they had a 55.88 in their first one. This is Alexander Kazhanov and Nikolai Kurinkov. A 5.39 start for them back in that first run, and I mentioned the 55.88.
You know, Lake Placid is a really long track, and typically that means you have enough time to make up for a bad start. But this track is so unique. You really, it carries the speed from that start, and you really can't make it up if they're going to be that far back. They're not coming back from that. Another 5.39.
So exactly what they did in the first run, and pilot Alexander Kazhanov, really a 4-man specialist, but he should challenge for some medals, not only on the World Cup, but if he gets it together, he'll want to make an impression in Sochi as well in front of his home country.
That's a lot of pressure for athletes with a home Olympics.
Falling behind in this one was 900ths back, now 2700ths back of the pace. De Bruin and Van der Ziege from the Netherlands, they are your leaders right now.
Something interesting to watch for is look at how high the athlete is sitting. The driver is sitting above that front cowling, the front of the sled. You want to be as low as possible but still be able to see. But in fact, you saw him sitting pretty low at the beginning, but Lake Placid is so scary for people that they sit higher and higher as they come down the track.
All right, so Kazhanov and Kurinkov come across and they move into the third spot, but De Bruin and Van der Ziege are your leaders from the Dutch. And another look at the run by the Russians, Kazhanov and Kurinkov.
That's a spot that if you're comfortable enough, like I was talking about, you're going to try and sit down a little lower, get yourself back into aerodynamic position. It's a little bit of anxiety on this track with so much work and so many tight turns that you tend to sit up a little bit higher and higher trying to see where you're going.
It is incredibly technical. This track has a 9.8% grade, 20 turns for the bobsledders. They'll hit a max G-force of 5.1 and a max speed of 130 kilometers an hour. Those numbers scare me, Brie.
and you know, when they're just numbers, that's one thing, but when you experience a bobsled ride and you feel it in your stomach and your head and okay, your whole body, that's another story.
Back at the start, the Italians going 8th. This is Simone Bertazzo and Francesco Costa. Tazzo, the 31-year-old, had a bronze at the World Champs in 2007. He's been competing since 2001. 2 Olympic appearances for the Italian pilot. His best was 9th in Vancouver back in 2010.
The Italian program has a rich history and a great sled program, but something that a smaller nation like that might struggle with, though, is finding talented brakemen. We're lucky in the United States because we got a huge population with so many talented athletes, but for a smaller nation to find those, you know, football linebacker types when football is actually soccer, that's a lot harder.
1300s back right now are the Italians, Bertazzo and Costa chasing down the time of De Bruin and Van der Ziege. Slower start for the Italians than they had in that heat run, heat 1 just a short time ago. A 5.31 for them. We'll see if that kills them here at the end. Another 13th split, now a 1600th split. Welcome back to Lake Placid. That is Simone Bertazzo and Francesco Costa, the Italian pairing. They just managed their way down this one and have moved themselves into third. If you're just joining us, it is De Bruin and Van der Ziege from the Netherlands who are out in front, followed in second by their compatriots Van Kalker and Jansma. Nick Gismondi alongside Bree Schaaf, bringing you this one from a very cold upstate New York in the legendary Mount Van Hoevenberg. Nice here as we get a chance now to see the Canadians. This is Lyndon Rush and Lascelles Brown. Lascelles Brown will be the brakeman here. Very talented guy. We saw him at the Bush World Challenge in Calgary. Lyndon Rush, the 33-year-old. 6 foot, had a silver at the 2012 World Champs right here in Lake Placid, so he's no stranger to this track, Bree.
Lascelles Brown, known as King by all of his friends, claims not to ever lift biceps, and yet I'm wondering if maybe he flexes them so much, that's how they stay so big. His arms are huge.
I would love that problem. That does not work for me.
Yeah, lifting up a drink doesn't necessarily do the same thing.
All right, the Canadians are off. They had a 5:20 push start in that first run, a 55.67 first run, and the fastest push here, a 5:22.
Lascelles is extremely talented, highly sought after brakeman. He actually pushed for Monaco for a few years after the last Olympics. Man for hire.
Lyndon Rush has been competing since 2004 and is even a real estate agent in Sylvan Lake in Alberta, where he lives and trains. Ahead right now, 2900s. Bree, the Canadians looking good here as they try to make a statement in North America.
You can see Lyndon's experience on this track, having great transitions. Ooh, really managed to skid there. There's such a fine-tuned touch to driving a bobsled, and it's touch and go if you can get a skid like that under control, and Lyndon handled that really well.
Nope, not a great speed. They're just a little over 75. They slow off, and they actually won't overtake it. We saw those splits dropping. They were 34 hundredths ahead, then 29, then 25, then 18, and they finish 2 hundredths back. So the Canadian pairing of Rush and Brown finishes in the second spot behind the Dutch. So the Dutch of De Bruin and Van der Ziege and Van Kalker and Jansma bracket the Canadians, who are sitting in second right now, Rush and Brown.
Lyndon didn't quite have the speed, and unfortunately, if you don't have the speed, that's going to exacerbate any small mistake you make. Because the faster you're going, the more those bumps and little things don't matter.
To clear the track. The track is now clear for
decent line here off of this turn, comes down nice and clean. And we will now go back up to the top of the track. This is the Swiss pairing, about halfway through our second heat here. Beat Hefty and Alex Baumann from Switzerland.
You'll notice Hefty's fingers are taped up there. He had a really unfortunate incident on the first heat. Nothing his own fault. His push bar collapsed, and as he was loading, as he had pushed off the bar to load the sled, I mean, talk about highlight reel material. It collapsed onto his hand, and he still managed to get in the sled. And it's amazing how, with adrenaline and with, you know, the pressure of bombing it off the top of a hill, you find a way to get in that sled no matter what happens.
Well, a silver medalist in yesterday's competition, he is no stranger to this sport. Competing since the late 90s, the 35-year-old has Olympic bronze in 02 and 06. And some credit in the World Champs as well. A bronze in 05, a bronze in 01, and a silver in St. Moritz last year.
And even more important, he won the test event in Sochi, and that's always the person with the big number on their back all season long. Yeah,
he knows the track, and this veteran, after that collapse of the bar, is muscling through this one, no problem, and he gets in nice and clean, and they will move themselves into first. So the Swiss, with a time of 1:51.61, are your new leaders. Hefty and Ballman take the lead from the Dutch, De Bruin and Van der Siege. Here's another look.
6-1.
You know, I would have really expected Hefty to lay down a much faster run. Unfortunately, this ping-ponging through the chicane. If you ski, I mean, the runners, granted, if you maybe had some parabolic-shaped runners that go skinny to fat again, and you can ski your way through the chicanes, but wow, that crushed him there. He really had a chance to jump back up.
Our award ceremony this afternoon coming up at 4 o'clock. It's always a lot of fun to have you all down there. 2-minute warning to our next competitor. 2-minute warning to our next competitor. Latvians Oskars Melbardis and Dumans Dreiskins. 2 minutes. So this afternoon we'll have our award ceremony at 4. We have our little bonfires down there, a big stage. We'd love to have you come down and see us in front of the Jumbotron. We'll pass out these awards and make sure you get to see the athletes up close and personal. Happy to spend some time with you and say hello.
So once again at the award ceremony, our athletes will sign autographs, grab a poster, buy a Sharpie or a t-shirt, jacket. Our athletes, once again, will stick around and sign some autographs for you. It'll be a little chilly this afternoon, but it's a beautiful afternoon here at the track. Stick around, learn our athletes' names.
Beautiful vistas here of Lake Placid in upstate New York, and it is nice to have you along for this one, Bree Schaff. A gorgeous day right now. Don't let that non-white fool you. The snow is coming. 8 inches supposed to fall on Lake Placid this evening. This track is covered, and I'm being told by experts around here that the snowfall here is light and fluffy, so it shouldn't be a big deal.
Just a delicate snowfall.
Yeah,
but the problem is the accumulation. And I'll tell you, as an athlete, when you pick your runners and you stand them up for race day and suddenly a weather system moves in, that really breaks your concentration because suddenly you're questioning all those decisions.
Gorgeous track here in Lake Placid. Third most recent version of this track, completed back in 2000. That is Whiteface Mountain there you see off in the distance, of course, where the Alpine events were held during the 1980 Olympics. And I was talking about this with John Morgan earlier. It was just it's incredible to walk around this town. It is probably one of my favorite places to come because of the nostalgia from the 80 Olympic team and their amazing win, and it's just a great time.
From the finish to start number 1. Start 1 for Oskars Melbardis.
All right, welcome back to Lake Placid, everyone. We are just over midway through the second run of the 2-man bobsled. The Latvians are now up at the top. That is Oskar Melbardis and Dumans Dreiskins. And once again, we welcome you back to Lake Placid, New York. Nick Gismondi alongside Bree Schaff bringing you this one. Glad to have you along midway through the second heat of the men's 2-man bobsled. The Americans still to come, a very talented Canadian team on track. Right now, the leaders are Hefty and Ballman from Switzerland. This is Oskars Melbardis and Dumans Dreiskins.
With the monster push that the Latvians are known for, as I was just about to say, he almost crashed in turn 2 on heat 1, and there we saw very close to doing it again. You know, yesterday we were so surprised and, you know, maybe a little bit embarrassed for the Korean team that turned over there, but as we're seeing today, it's a fly trap. You have no idea, especially you're not going fast, to have something like that sneak up on you really shakes you up for the rest of the run, especially when you're a new driver like he is.
Yeah, 25-year-old Oskar Melbardis started as a brakeman. He's only really been piloting for 2 years. Started in 2010-11. But I'll tell you, we'll see what he can do. He had a bronze in 4-man at 2009 here in Lake Placid. So not a stranger to this track, but it is a tough one, and they will move themselves into the lead with a nice run there. 1700ths ahead. So the Latvians, Oskar Melbardis and his brakeman, Dumans Dreiskins, jump out in front and take the lead from Hefty and Ballman. The Dutch are sitting in the 3rd spot. De Bruin and Van der Siege and the Canadian team of Rush and Brown just off the podium.
You'll see random strokes of genius from this young Latvian team. They, in fact, won the 4-man test event in Sochi, so they're the team to watch for, even though they're a bit up and down on the World Cup Tour. You can see breaking into a skid, trying to keep the runners straight there. We've talked about velocity and how important that is to maintain up on cliffside there.
Those are 2 very big boys, linebackers, squeezing into a small bathtub. Back up now to the start for the 12th sled. This is the German team of Francesco Friedrich and Johannes Bacher. Competing since 2006. Francesco Friedrich, just 23 years old. He is the reigning world champ from last year in St. Moritz.
You can see that runner drop off of 2. 2 can be so mind-blowing sometimes. This is really a non-event as a turn, yet if you enter late, like we've seen, it can tip a sled over.
Good push for them. That was a 5:19, faster than their 5:22 first run. Their first run time of 55.51. They are ahead now at the splits and gaining by 1500ths at the moment right now. Coming into the third now 1700ths. Gaining some time. They're going to have to put up a big number, almost going 76 miles an hour, so speeds are good, Bree.
Germans are known for their speeds. They have incredible equipment and a rich history in sled programming to make sure that they always have top-of-the-line materials.
Well, you see the sun on the track a little bit. It is coming out, not too overcast here, and the Germans will come across and take advantage of the nice weather at the moment. They are 1300ths ahead, and your new leaders, that is Francesco Friedrich and Johannes Bacher. They lead now ahead of Melbardis and Dreiskens from Latvia and Hefty and Ballman from Switzerland. Get another look.
Here we see him coming out of the exit of 14, and notice his low profile. The lower you can sit, the faster you're going to go. Aerodynamics is extremely important over the course of a mile. Climbing high onto 17. It's been interesting to see all the different lines the different nations take on this track. You're coached all week, only 6 training runs before you compete in a World Cup event, so you're trying to maximize how much you learn in every single run.
Okay, this is the second now of 3 Canadian teams that we will see. Driver pilot Justin Crips and his brakeman Brian Barnett. Crips, big boy, 6 foot, 26 years old, actually born in Hawaii. So I was telling John Morgan earlier, I'm not quite sure how he found his way to bobsledding in Canada, but more power to him. I would have stayed in Hawaii.
There really is no normal way of coming into bobsled. Everyone's got a crazy random story.
So a 5:20 push for them in that first round, a 55.47 run. Let's see where they're at here. Quicker, third fastest push we've seen, a 5:18. So a nice job there by Crips and Barnett. That is a little bit of that track and field background of Justin Crips coming into play there.
Right, and you have to wonder if Barnett, a highly decorated track and field athlete as well, but you know, maybe Crips is a little uncertain. Barnett does not have a beard, and a beard seems to be the Canadian way.
Beard is so important.
It is. It's pretty much a Canadian tattoo on your chin.
That should be a stat on here somewhere. 700ths ahead, now 1100ths ahead. Traveling at about 76.1 miles an hour, so they are flying right now. They are going to jump into the lead if they can maintain this. Gotta be mistake-free. 1600ths ahead, gaining time still. Coming into the finish here, the Canadians should be your new leaders, and they will. So Crips and Barnett from Canada take the lead with a few sleds to come. Crips and Barnett currently in first place, and a nice push there for them. They got off to a good quick start and gained speed the entire time. They are 1800ths ahead, Bree.
It's a solid lead in bobsled. Things don't get too tight until we get to those top sleds. You can see him hanging off of a turn, another runner drop, and you see anytime you can see a lot of the action in the sled, it's not as smooth of a run, just minute loss in time.
Plenty of places to gain speed and lose.
There's that beard. Look at that
beard.
beard.
He does have a beard.
It's fantastic. How dare you? How dare you discount his beard?
Barnett. That was terribly insulting that I didn't notice it.
You need to grow one now as homage. The Germans now back at the top of the track. Crips and Barnett, they are your leaders from Canada. This is the German pairing in the 14th start, Thomas Florschutz and Kevin Kuski. Florschutz, the 35-year-old, silver at the 2010 Olympic Games, competing since 2006, trying to chase down the Canadians who just laid down a great run, and they get a good start here. A 5:18 for them, improving on their 5:20 from run one, a 55.43 run one first time, and they are already 1100ths ahead.
You know, Florschutz is such an experienced pilot and has had spent so much time on the podium. It's always fascinating to see him a little bit farther back. Had trouble yesterday, but he's having a better day today, flying off the end of 12. They're really difficult to catch pressure if you go on late.
Florschutz's older brother is actually a luger for Germany. That is Andre.
Oftentimes, a lot of the German drivers do come from luge, and that gives them just incredible experience going into driving a bobsled, as luge is the fastest and I would consider the most difficult sport on ice.
All right, 2,500s ahead, and Florschutz and Kuski are your new leaders. They knock the Canadian pairing of Crips and Barnett down. Friedrich and Bacher, the German pairing, is sitting back in that third spot. But a nice job here. The Germans are currently sitting in 1 and 3. A lot of experience from Florschutz.
He's going to be pretty happy with that run, and it very potentially has a chance to put him in medal position with how tight the rest of the sleds are. Of course, not Holcomb.
There are some very big names coming up, including our next pairing, the Canadians, Chris Spring and Jesse Lumsden. We'll talk about them in a moment. Right now, as you get a look again at Florschutz and Kuski's run. Florschutz, some success in the World Championships as well. Silver in 08, 09, and 11. Bronze last year in 13 in St. Moritz. Now back up to the top. It is Chris Spring and Jesse Lumsden. I expect a good start out of these gentlemen. Lumsden, a very big boy and incredibly talented. He is the reigning World Push Challenge champion. He did a fantastic job in Calgary just a few weeks ago. Let's see where they come off with, trying to best a 5:18 first run push. They do a 5:14 and some good pace to pick things up already here for them.
You know, we are not going to see any push records today because it is so cold that start is really sticky. Brakemen hate seeing that. You get down, ready to hit the sled, and the sled doesn't budge. But that was an incredible start regardless.
Chris Spring, who made his first Olympic debut after just 3 seasons of piloting, is 30 years old. He's the 2012 Canadian national champ and another track athlete that switched over in 07. Ahead right now, but not by much. Lost a little time there, Bree. They're just 900s out.
This is a great rebound effort by Spring, who finished in a disappointing 12th place yesterday.
Crips and Barnett, their compatriots, are sitting in second, and now they are back by 500s. They will come across, and they will not best it. They will move themselves into the second position right now. Well, not happy with that. The Canadians a little frustrated, lost some time at the very end right there. Let's see if we can see what happened.
I know that feeling where you just want to sit down, just lay down in your sled and take a break from your life. Look at how high Chris is sitting. You can see him flying off. The bunk actually hits the ice as he comes off of turn 12 and takes that hit going into 13.
That's a good look right there at Chris Spring. Crowd staying warm here at the finish in Lake Placid. It is a chilly day outside as we head now back up to the top as you get a look at your leaderboard. The Germans, Maximilian Arndt and Martin Putzi, are next off here. After them, there are just 4 sleds left to come. 3 of those sleds, American sleds. Maximilian Arndt trying to improve on that first push. They do a 5:26 for them. Their first run time of 55:35. And the 26-year-old, who's 5'11", had a bronze at the 2012 World Champs.
Talk about German precision. Those guys' load was incredible. Possibly one of the best bobsled loads I've ever seen. So quick and so precise. I mean, we're looking at this sled. That cowling is really narrow, and as big as these guys are, to hop in and get down that quickly is really impressive.
Maximilian Arndt really finds a ton of speed at the bottom of the track. He's going 76.5 miles an hour right now. He's still back 1,800, so some technical errors. Let's see if he can pick up that speed at the very bottom of the track. That final split, he is going to come across, and he should be behind in the count. He will. He is 2,300s back in third. So the Germans come across there. That is Arndt and Putzi. Decent run for them. They are now in that third position. So it is Florschutz and Kuski, the German team, in the first spot. Spring and Jesse Lumsden from Canada sitting in second, and Arndt and Putzi, the Germans, who are down in third. And now things start to get interesting.
Yes, they do. That actually bounced Spring back up into position to get a top 6 here for the very important point accumulation as we head toward the Olympic Games.
Back at the top, we'll get you set for the Russians, Alexander Zubkov and Maxim Belugin. Back in Lake Placid, Florschutz and Kuska. The Germans are your leader right now. Spring and Lumsden from Canada in second. Arndt and Putzi from Germany sitting in third. There are just 4 sleds to go. These are the Russians, Alexander Zubkov and Maxim Belugin. Zubkov, the 39-year-old, a veteran of this sport, piloting since '99, a bronze at the 2010 Games, 2011 World Champion. He is another former loser breed.
Yeah, I believe he's been sliding maybe for over 30 years, which you would think that accumulated head trauma might keep him from being able to function, but he's pretty incredible at his job, and in fact, it is a job internationally as bobsled pays quite a bit for countries that prize it as much as Russia does.
Top time right now is a 150.88. That is Florschutz and Kuska from Germany. They are your leaders right now. It is this pairing, the Russians, Zubkov and Belugin, behind in the count. They are 2200ths off. A 5:26 start was faster than their first push. Going about, almost going 77 miles an hour. That is some of the higher speeds that we've seen, but it's all about the technique on this track, especially down low. 1200ths back, so they did pick up some time. They could jump in, and they will not. Those are your leaders right now. It is still Florschutz and Kuska. Zubkov and Belugin do move into that second spot, so they are currently on the podium. The Canadians slide down into third. That is Chris Spring and Jesse Lumsden. But a good push here and a good run for the Russians.
Right. I mean, and you look at that run, you come up as a pilot, you see that number 2 and think, what happened? Well, really, Florschutz just had an incredible run. If you watch Zubkov here, you pick apart this run, that is incredible. I mean, he is flawless, but there's not much you can do when someone else ahead of you just lays down a smoker like Florschutz did.
Yeah, well, he was technical and clean on the bottom part, but a difficult start for him. One of the slowest pushes for that Russian team, and that might have cost them at the end. And now it gets interesting. The 3 American teams, Corey Butner, Charles Berkeley, Nick Cunningham, Johnny Quinn, and then Holcomb and Foe. Right now, it is Butner and Berkeley. A 55.32 in that first run. Butner started sliding in 2007. He was selected for a recruiting camp in Lake Placid. Medaled in this race last year, and he's been driving since 2010 after pushing for Napier for quite some time in 2009. And Bree, they look for a good one here. 5:29, not a great start, but I think he's going to go and apply rule number 76. He says no excuses, play like a champion.
Yeah, Corey's a great guy. He's had great speeds as well coming down this track yesterday at the bottom, so we'll see how much time he can make up. He did have a knee surgery relatively late this summer that he's been trying to come back from, and you know, that's always a struggle mentally as well, and he's done a great job here. 1400, now 1500s back for him. We mentioned that 5:29 start time, a little bit slower than he'd like, the 12th slowest push we've seen. Now gaining a little bit of speed. He's 800s back, going 77 miles an hour. He's got the speed. Can he keep it clean throughout the bottom here? Looking to overtake the lead of Florschutz and Kuska. Now he's 300s back. He's gaining. Will he get it? Across the line and into first. The Americans, Butner and Berkeley, get a big cheer from the finish line here in the home crowd that is filling up for this one. And they are your new leaders with a 150.85. Butner and Berkeley move into first. Guaranteed a medal now. This is huge for Corey. This is where you need as many points as you can, especially when you're not as experienced as the other pilots on tour headed to Europe Europe. You need to do well on your home tracks. And Corey had a rough day yesterday, all things considered, so he's going to be very happy making it happen today.
Well, after 2 fourth finishes yesterday as well as last week, and a little bit of a slip right there by Charles Berkeley off the start, they make up for it and will find themselves guaranteed on a podium here in Lake Placid.
That is always such a feeling of satisfaction.
All right, back now to the start. 2 sleds to come, all Americans. This is Nick Cunningham and Johnny Quinn. Cunningham, the 28-year-old, has been competing since 2008. Much respect out to him, a sergeant in the New York National Guard.
There's a nice close-up shot of the holes in the brakeman speed suit. That happens from 4-man, actually. You're wondering what on earth bit him. But when these guys load a 4-man sled, it's easy to kick each other.
Cunningham was 12th at the 2010 Olympic Games. No stranger to being a leader. He was the captain of the Boise State track team, so another track athlete we see here. They pushed to a 5:19 improvement on their 5:24 from run number 1. Their first run time was a 55.25, and they're 2300ths ahead of the count right now from teammates Butner and Berkeley.
And Nick is, in fact, an extremely talented track and field athlete and has medaled in the last 2 races, looking to medal again on this home field.
2200ths ahead now after the 3rd split and gaining time and speed. Loses a little right there, going about 77 miles an hour. Same pace as Berkeley and Butner, 1800ths ahead now. Bottom part of the track.
Not as good a speed, and you saw him wipe onto turn 17 there with the late entry. We'll see if he can hold it going uphill into 19.
Cunningham and Quinn, the second American team to go, and they will move into the lead by just 1100ths over Butner and Berkeley. So that guarantees the Americans some hardware here. It is Cunningham and Quinn overtaking the lead from Butner and Berkeley. Florschutz and Kuska, the German team, are sitting in 3rd. Big applause here as the Americans continue to roll in Lake Placid.
And here was what clinched it, the chicane. You can be carrying a lot of speed, but as you've seen other people ping pong, that will ruin it. Nick nails that chicane. A little bit late on the 17, climbing up to the roof, but he had enough time to work with it. He still came ahead.
All right, and now it is time for the main event. Mr. Steve Holcomb being pushed and braked by Chris Fote. Wow, the question now is will the Americans go 1, 2, and 3? I definitely see that happening. Steve Holcomb has been perfect this year, and it doesn't matter who's with him. The Americans are off. Holcomb out in front here on this one. That sled, of course, famously built by BMW. 5:14, good push. The fastest we've seen and an improvement on their first push. They are underway and already 2100ths ahead.
Oh, a little bit of a tap going into 3, but if anyone can pull this off, it's Holcomb.
Holcomb now looking to make up for a slight mistake. 2800ths ahead, gaining time, gaining speed.
His brakeman Chris is a really talented track and field athlete, and anytime you have a long start like this, that's going to play to his speed.
3100ths ahead, still gaining time.
Oh, great entry into 12. You see him just catch that pressure that suctions the sled right out of there.
3600ths ahead now. Holcomb is on a good pace right here. He's going about 80 miles an hour. 78 miles an hour, excuse me.
Yeah, with that kind of speed, there is no losing this. He can let go of the D-rings right now and start celebrating.
4700ths ahead, Holcomb into the finish, and he's gonna win again. Steve Holcomb completes the sweep for the Americans. They go 1, 2, and 3. Steve Holcomb, Chris Fote are your winners. Cunningham and Quinn finish in 2nd. Butner and Berkeley are in 3rd.
God bless America today. That is incredible. To nail it 1, 2, 3, that's so huge for a program like this and really makes a statement to your big sponsors.
Well, the 16 years of experience that Steve Holcomb has showing oh so clear in this one, and an incredible race for him as he comes away with another gold medal. Steve Holcomb is, to say the least, on one heck of a run.
Steve is a perfectionist, and that's what makes him such an incredible pilot, and he was a bit disappointed with his 2nd run yesterday. And he said, I don't know what happened. I said, Holkie, you got bored. Sometimes winning can get boring, so at least that inspired him a bit more to come out and really lay it down today.
You know, an incredible resume for Steve Holcomb, and an incredibly nice guy. It is always good to see him doing well and that big smile on his face and the Superman logo underneath. That is definitely an appropriate moniker for the man who is just absolutely golden. So the Americans, they go 1, 2, and 3. Steve Holcomb finds more gold in these gorgeous hills of Lake Placid.
And watch that run through Shady. This is going to go add to the highlight reel of perfection for Steve Holcomb.
Steve Holcomb comes away in that first spot as your winner, and celebrations from the American teammates all around, and reason to celebrate. A gold, a silver, and a bronze. That'll look real nice on the mantle with the stockings this Christmas. So Vogt and Holcomb with a time of 150.19 come away with gold. It is Cunningham and Quinn in that second spot for the silver, and Butner and Berkeley finish in third for bronze. The Canadians, Spring and Lumsden, fall down to the sixth spot. Zubkov and Belugan in fifth. Florschutz and Kuska, the German team, in fourth. Any surprises through the lower rankings of this second heat, second two-man race here in Placid?
You know, it's another German surprise, not a surprise, because really they belong up there, and yet they've been struggling all season.
All right, when we come back, we will hear from the winners and see some awards, but the Americans, they go 1, 2, and 3 here in Placid. Back in Lake Placid, a look at the World Cup standings, and no surprise that Steve Holcomb is very far atop that. The U.S. has 9 straight races dating back to the last weekend. Also, there are 11 of 15 World Cup races for the season so far. And just to add a little extra in there, 2 podium sweeps now. The women did it last week.
Just getting greedy, taking it all. We'll take it all, thank you.
An incredible run here as you're getting a look at those World Cup standings and the bottom part of it as we head now out to the podium where you see the top 3 coming away with their flowers as well as medals. We will hear from them shortly as well, but Steve Holcomb standing atop with Chris Vogt in this one. A 150.19 was the time, and that is USA, USA, USA. Cunningham and Quinn in the second spot. Butner and Berkeley finished down in the third. Let's take a look back at the runs and how these guys got there. That is Steve Holcomb in the BMW bobsled.
And you'll notice this winning run, not particularly interesting, and that's what you're going for in bobsled. You want to keep things smooth and just flow with the track, and no one knows how to do that better than Steve Holcomb.
He gained time the entire way down, 21 hundredths ahead, then 28, then 31, then 36, then 47 to finish 55 hundredths ahead of his teammates Cunningham and Quinn. And Again, it was Butner and Berkeley who finished into that third position, but Steve Holcomb continues to show his dominance. He has been absolutely perfect this season, and needless to say, that sets him up nicely for what can happen in the Olympic Games.
Yes, it does. You want to make winning a routine.
All right, let's send it now down to the finish line where our John Morgan is with the Americans. John, take it away.
Okay. Interviews now down here in the finish. Go to third place over here, Team Corey Butner. Chuck Berkeley, boy, good speed in the bottom part of the track both days. You finally got onto the podium, though.
Oh, yeah. No, this is what we wanted. We wanted the sweep. We got the sweep. First trip wasn't that great, but it would pull together in the second one. And Chuck in the back, we're just fast. Don't know what it is, but we're fast. So.
You slipped in the second run?
Yeah, I got to fix that. I don't know what it is. I got to get with Stu and see what we can do to correct that, but I'll get it straightened out.
Boy, it'd be scary when you stop slipping.
I know.
Okay, over to Mr. Cunningham. And you got Johnny Quinn with you today on the back. 2 good runs, really great speed, both runs.
To have this confidence is huge, and you can see really where the U.S. program is going and where it's been, and to have the best speeds and to come out here and chasing Holcomb down, and it's great to have the best in the world on your team, because every day we get to see what it takes, and he's a great mentor to Corey and I, so you can see that he's definitely helping the whole U.S. program.
Johnny, feel pretty good about the result? Just your first medal in 2 minutes?
First medal, yeah, first medal. Took 4 years to get my first World Cup medal, so it's pretty awesome. I'm really excited.
Enjoy the moment.
Thank you.
Here he comes. It's getting boring, this is 7 straight times over 3 years, but you didn't win as much today as you won by yesterday. Your first heat wasn't as good.
Yeah, I made a mistake. Our sled was out here for 2 hours before the race, and my bungees froze. So I made the steering a little shaky, but it was still a good run. You adapted that quickly. Good start from Fote, and we have the confidence to come out here today and do well, and it went really well. I'm speechless. I don't even know what to say.
Chris, you ready for tomorrow?
Yes, sir. Can't wait. 7 for 7.
What a result by the United States. First, second, and third here in Lake Placid. The girls did it last weekend. The men did it this weekend.
They are your 1, 2, and 3, and it's hard to ignore Chris Boat's claim of 7 for 7. They are going for that, as perfection is, well, perfect for the Americans. Steve Holcomb, Nick Cunningham, and Corey Butner, they drive the U.S. to success in a very exciting 2-man race. The second one here in Lake Placid, and the Americans are showing their dominance on their home track. Stephen Holcomb finds a way to continue to win. He comes away with the gold medal. His brakeman, Chris Boat. Nick Cunningham, the American pilot, finishes in second with silver. Johnny Quinn, his brakeman, Corey Butner, and Charles Berkeley round out the podium. For Bree Schaff, I'm Nick Gismondi. Thanks for watching. So long from Lake Placid.
Yeah. We see a 2-mile long track.